Hello, Internet, and welcome back to the podcast. When I started Shells and Shadows, I had two people in particular reach out to me and say, Bro, like, get me on your podcast. I got to
Uh-huh.
get on the podcast. And here we are. So, in some ways, you invited me to this show.
Yeah, I think that's a good description. I do have to say you did invite our cousin before us, so that was a little hurtful,
Fair
but
enough.
happy to be here now.
For reference, Ozzy Foster's the cousin, and
Yeah.
I want to hear what stories you got to live up to his powerlifting stories. He shared a lot of inspiring info, and why don't you tell everyone,
I can
introduce yourself. I'll let you give your own bio and intro. This is Aiden Foster.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yep. As you just said, my name's Aiden. I'm not a power lifter. I don't really go to the gym at all, actually. I mean, you couldn't really tell, but uh, um, what can I say that's living up to the hype of Ozzy? Um, I would say I'm a lot smarter than he is, for sure. So I think that's probably where I get him
All right, now
a
now
little
who
bit.
who are you really?
Um, I'm a Jewish teen going through
Well, you're
college.
22 now, so you're not a teen.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Uh, yeah, this is Bo. This is
Yeah.
my younger brother. He's a little bit of a, how do we say, what's the term in Hebrew to
Goat?
describe Bo?
How do you say the greatest of all time in Hebrew?
Achי tov ba'olam. You can tell people. You can go to Israel and tell people that. This is Bo
I think I'm
Foster.
being set up.
No, you're good. I promise. Yovel can verify. There's no catch there. This is Bo Foster. I've known these two since, gosh, I was like senior in high school when I met you guys through Ozzy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Since become close family friends and consider your guys family of mine. And welcome to the show.
thank you. Happy to
Thanks.
be here.
All right, so you guys grew up pretty prominent Jewish family in
Mm,
Denver, yeah?
mm,
Yeah.
Big rabbi,
mm.
grandfather of the community.
Yeah,
Um, Talk to me about that. What was that like?
yeah.
Um, well, the way that I see it is when you're born, especially Jewish, like to a Reformed Jewish family nowadays, like you're given an option whether or not you want to sort of pursue your Judaism. It's kind of how it is. Like if you want to be as open about it and as proud as the next person, you can. But if you don't, then that's also just I'm blah blah blah, and I happen to be Jewish. It's not I am Bo and I am Jewish. With the way that we grew up, it wasn't as much of a choice as it was just something that we had to live up to. I mean, especially our dad. I mean, his obviously our grandfather is a rabbi, so he grew up going to synagogue every single week and then Sunday school, and that's exactly how we grew up. It's the same way, so we didn't necessarily get to choose how a Jewish we wanted to be. That's just the way that things sort of turned out. I think, I mean, it's been a blessing so far. Some people don't like to say that they're Jewish, but I love to say that I'm Jewish.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I think nowadays it's a lot of when you're a kid, you can choose, if you want to go to Sunday school or if you want to go to Jewish day school for elementary school. But I think looking back on it, I think going to services back then, I didn't like it, but now I kind of miss it. I miss that community, especially the one I grew up in um, it was mixed. Like I went to a non-Jewish middle school and high school, and a lot of my friends there weren't Jewish. And then so when I would go to confirmation on Wednesday and Sunday nights, like all those guys and
Yeah.
all those people were Jewish, so it was just a different world. Um, but it was nice, and I think at school it's hard to find that same group of people, I would say, that share those common values, and especially where you're from, just because everyone at college is from different backgrounds and places, and so it's a little bit harder to build that community. um, yeah, I think the way in which we were raised, it was really helpful, and um, yeah, I wouldn't change anything about it.
Yeah, and I resonate. I have that in common. I grew up with my dad being the rabbi of the community. So grandfather, dad, I mean, family name carries some of
Yeah.
that weight, and you don't necessarily choose. It's kind of built into who you are growing up.
Hmm.
You're, part of a family that very much leads the Jewish community in your area. Um,
I think it's a sink or swim thing. You either do it and you do it to its full extent, or you leave it and, that's what happens.
Yeah.
To some people, it can really shy them away from
Yeah,
the religion in general.
100%.
I mean, I definitely went through my, I guess, rebellious phase of like, I don't want any part in this.
Hmm. I
Um,
think everyone has that little part of themselves at some point.
yeah, absolutely.
When did you find out? When did you? When did you?
Yeah, let's get to the
I,
serious
I've
questions now.
so at least when you were a senior in high school, like as much as I remember, um, you weren't religious. You weren't religious. Um, you weren't, I mean, you were on a workout grind, like a self betterment thing, for sure. But like that kind of developed for you, like over time. I mean, then you pledged here, and then you're sitting here. When did you like? I've never asked you the question. When did you sort of adopt or want to become a religious person?
Gosh, I mean, if you had asked me that while it was happening, I probably would have been like, no, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm religious. I paved my own path or whatever. And you know what? Honestly, like it started to happen throughout college because I came in to college and finished high school, I guess looking for answers and looking for guidance. And I didn't always find that in Judaism because I feel like, and I grew up conservative and you guys grew up reform. And while it's not exactly the same, it's far different from modern Orthodox or
Mm-hmm.
Orthodox. I feel like we're not really explained and taught why the heck we're doing what we're doing. Why do we celebrate Shabbat? Why do we observe all these practices? And like one day I met the right person who started telling me and giving me explanations for a lot of just these common practices like tefillin and Shabbat. And where I had looked for like spiritual connection in like Buddhism and other worldly teachings,
Hmm.
I realized that my own foundational upbringing and these teachings that are so integral to like who I am contained all the answers I was looking for. Have you guys read the book The Alchemist?
We have heard of it.
Okay, so this guy goes on an adventure and he finds a map and he's told to go find treasure. And he searches all throughout the deserts and travels to far lands and learns so many lessons. And at the end, he finds um, he digs up a chest that has coordinates, and the coordinates lead him to the treasure, which is actually back in the barn where he started his
Mm.
journey. It's very symbolic because we look for all these different answers, and a lot of the times what we're looking for is actually where we begin. It was the
Yeah.
journey that created us. So I went on my own journey, and I guess that's how I ended up where I am now.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I would say we knew each other in high school, but I wouldn't say like we were friends.
No, I
Um,
crashed your senior
you
grad
did
party.
crash my senior grad party with Ozzy. And then we met. I feel like we re-met basically freshman year, and um, that fall we actually had a pretty fun experience together. We went to Red Rocks.
We did.
We did. And I would say after that concert, I feel like we got a little bit closer. Then we went through pledging together. Um, but I mean, what would you say to someone going through their first year of college? What would be some of your advice to someone? I mean, trying to find themselves, because I think that from between where we met and to now, I think we both changed a lot. What would a piece of advice be?
Especially coming to a place like CU Boulder, I think you had this experience as well. It's inevitable. You're around new people, new place, new
Yeah.
environment. You're gonna get lost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many different people steering you in different directions, and there's almost like this current of culture here that kind of pulls you along unless you really know how to navigate it. And I feel like you relate where
Yeah.
the first couple months of college, you were kind of, let's say, getting lost in the
Yeah,
world
getting lost
of
in the sauce. Yeah.
partying and women and all this stuff. But you found your
Oh,
way. Yeah, no, let's talk about it. I mean,
expose me. Okay.
it's the culture here. We're in a culture that says like everything's a free for all. You've grown up in your parents' house and now you have freedom for the first time.
Yeah.
But you've ended up in like uh, a very loving, committed relationship after you've experienced like this whole
Yeah.
lostness period.
Yeah.
What do you What do you want to comment on that?
I mean, I think
Not to out you here.
You have to
no,
go
it's
on.
fine. I think this is where the podcast should be going. I think this is the direction we should be going in. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's difficult, especially, when you get to college and some of those restraints I feel like are loosened, and you're on your own. You can make any decision you want, really, and there's virtually no consequences. Obviously, unless you're doing something harmful to yourself or someone else, there's virtually no consequences. And I think that's something that a lot of first year college students experience, and that's obviously something that I've experienced. I think a lot of people have experienced it too. I think Bo's experienced that as well, if he wants to comment on it. But I think after you know your first semester and everything's so available and so easy, I think for me, I made a conscious decision. I was like, what actually makes me feel good? Because I think that's a misconception is people think that, partying and hanging out with different people every night makes them feel good. When in reality, maybe it does. Maybe for a select few people it does. But I think for the majority of people want to feel, some sort of wholeness in their life. And, I had a conversation with myself and I was like, if I keep on going down this path, like I'm gonna have an awesome 4 years, but at the end of it, I'm gonna look back and I'm gonna be like, what did I actually get done? What did I actually, complete? And luckily, I made a quick decision and I turned it around and I met my girlfriend. And, I think without that, I would have had an awesome experience, but I wouldn't have felt the same level of satisfaction with my decisions as I would have otherwise.
Like what you said, everything's available to us.
Mhm.
No other time in human history has everything been more available to people at such a young age.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go out to a restaurant and eat greater than any kings ever ate. You walk around a college campus on a hot sunny day and probably see more half naked women on fair and field
Yeah.
than any
Hmm.
wealthy person in medieval times would have ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's the point. We live in excess. We live in a culture where anything you want, you tap a button, it's yours. You go
Yeah, it's at your
online.
fingertips.
Young men, especially. I know so many young men who are trapped in a world of pornography because it's so available.
Yeah.
I mean, everything available at our fingertips.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to take a step back and say no.
Yeah.
That's noble in our culture.
Yeah.
At least it should be, and we
Yeah.
should strive for that.
Yeah.
You're a freshman. You're what's been your experience in the sea that you've been thrown into of a college campus?
I think my experience was a lot different than Aiden's.
Really?
Yeah. I think that it's, when I looked at his experience, it looked like it was like a lot more like going out and partying and drinking, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I was still keeping pretty good grades in school, but yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
I was just saying.
He's a scholar.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
what's
aware.
not?
I was just saying. I'm just saying. It looked a little different back then to what it is now. Which by the way,
I think Boulder's changed for sure.
yeah, for sure. Like I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of guys that go out from like Wednesday through Saturday. Like I don't like Friday night, then obviously Saturday night. But like a lot of people just get really stuck in this shit. I don't know.
There's
There are a lot of
no
people that-
roadmap. There's no roadmap.
Well, and I think not only is there no roadmap, but also, I think it's unfortunate that there's such an epidemic of drug abuse in Boulder, and there's so many people that, sit on their couch, I mean, all day, smoking from when they wake up to when they go to sleep, and because of that, they have no motor to get outside of their house, and so then they get stuck of this. Well, this is my everyday, and they don't really understand that. Well, yeah, but you're graduating and, whatever it is, whether you're a freshman or you're graduating as a senior in a couple weeks, like, you got to move on at some point and you can't just be sitting in your house, smoking weed every day.
That's
all day long.
definitely the biggest problem with culture at Boulder, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad counsels guys in their 50s, 40s, like between 40s and 60s, honestly, mostly 50s, and mostly guys who have some sort of midlife crisis or
Mhm.
awakening and realize that it's time to grow up. Except that continues into your 40s, 50s, 60s if you don't have a moment, like an aha
100%.
moment.
Yeah.
Um, so, guys who are coming to college and never really grow up and step from boyhood into manhood, and have no teacher maybe to show them how to do that.
Yeah.
That's also a problem. It's not that
Yeah.
I mean, we can think probably about a bunch of people that could use a
Yeah.
really great mentor or teacher. Um, Maybe it's not drugs, maybe it's mental health. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, your pledge class brother Manny, he deserved a teacher, mentor, and um, we all do, and it's hard to find that some days because we're living in a culture of boys around us in a college campus, in a fraternity of boys. How do we grow into men?
I've had this conversation with you because I think we both kind of made the realization early on. You probably earlier than me, but we both kind of made the realization. I spoke to you about this about a week ago, but just kind of looking back on our experiences together and who we've hung out with and who we are going to hang out with, and just kind of realizing, what is the level of, like, whether it's maturity or whether it's motivation, what really is it? Because I think we I think a lot of the underclassmen as well in our fraternity have also made this kind of realization, but just kind of, what are you going to do past your 4 years in college? And it's true. It's sad because I think the way in which college is built, if you want to talk about this, like, we can actually talk about it, because the way in which college is built is basically saying, you have 4 years to party and, to go to class, maybe for some people. And when you're done with this 4 years, then you're going to go into the workforce and you're going to live your normal life, right? I think that's what people kind of envision college as when you're in high school and when you're growing up. But what ends up happening is, for the vast majority of people, they go to college for 4 years and they're like, fuck, what do I do after? How am I going to get a job? Well, you haven't made a resume. You have no experience. Like, where are you going? What even is your major? Like, that's the problem. People are going for 4 years, spending a bunch of their money or their parents' money, most likely, and then graduating with an irrelevant major, doing nothing, and they have no job. And they're like, well, what am I going to do now?
And I come back to the same idea. I think guys, men and women, especially guys, need a roadmap. Um,
But
I
how do you propose that? How do you suggest that?
I think I don't know if it's a one size fits all. That's the thing.
Goals. Like the way that I see things is like, um, I mean, I know exactly what I want to do. I mean, I have a graduation plan. I'm graduating a year early. So like, I mean, I get shit for that all the time. People are like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Like, it's stupid. This is that. Like, I have a goal that I want to accomplish, and I have.
Oh, the sound will pick up all that. Yeah, it's okay. It's natural. It's human.
Bo, stop looking at
Um,
yourself.
Yeah, sorry. Um,
You have a goal.
I have a goal.
You want to get it done.
That's the only reason why. Like, I want to get it done. Like, I want to conquer it. Like, there's not another reason for me to stick around for another year of just being surrounded by degeneracy. Like, that's the bottom line. It's true.
Mhm.
Like, there's only so much, especially going to, I mean, I was between going to Boulder and Wisconsin for a little bit. And, like, the first thing that I asked um, this kid that went to Wisconsin, I mean, I knew him from Denver, whatever. I was like, so what is the main difference between a student at, um, at Wisconsin and Boulder? He said, well, I think we're a little more driven to get up out of bed every day. And, after we go out, whatever, the next morning we'll do homework. To be honest, I haven't seen that here. I haven't seen that here at a lot of people. The drive, like the super, you know, like ready to tackle a bunch of work. You really need to surround yourself with the right people, which, by the way, that applies just in life.
I think it's fully possible too.
Yeah. Like, when I surround myself with the right people, like, you will accomplish what you want to, because you will make the time and understand how the people that you're hanging out with, make the time to get done what they want to get done and what they need to, instead of just being around folks that see, goals as a chore, right?
Yeah, I think that also comes with age and experience. I mean, 4 years ago, we were very different
Yeah,
people, and we made a lot of mistakes that you either have made or have yet to
Yeah.
make.
he'll make them if he hasn't made them already.
Probably step on some toes, probably break a few rules, and have to pay the price. But we've both done that, and there's value in that. And honestly, having this space of exploration and self-discovery and learning
Hmm.
to do it is safer than not having skipped over that period and going out into the real world and getting a big boy job and making those mistakes. Then you have a space right now to do that. There's
Fair
some
enough.
value in that.
Yeah.
I think you have to go through some shit to actually know what's right and what's wrong. You can't just be this perfectly flawless person who looks back 4 years later and is like, well, I didn't make any mistakes. No, you made some mistakes, and the mistakes are for the better.
It's like an idea that shows up everywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a quote. I think it's by like Thich Nhat Hanh. He's like a Buddhist guy.
You're a quote guy. Jeez.
Yeah, well, it comes out when I need it.
I want that book, by the way.
Which The Alchemist?
No, the one that you're reading in your apartment. Like tells someone what type of like what type of lover they are.
The Enneagram?
The Enneagram, yeah.
We can get into that. That's a whole other topic.
Okay.
But the quote.
He's passionate
I
about
don't know
it.
what the fuck's the Enneagram.
We can talk about it. Quote is no mud, no lotus, right?
Hmm.
There's another quote that, I mean, it's just a saying that people use.
Yeah.
Never. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, what does it mean?
It means that a lotus needs mud to grow, or like a diamond, right? A diamond needs pressure.
Yeah,
Pressure on
pressure
creates
builds diamonds. Yeah.
Exactly. Same concept. You don't have the dirt, you don't have the shit, the pressure. The beautiful outcome isn't always there. Sometimes it's through that process that it emerges. It's beautiful, but it sucks sometimes. But people need to know that there's something on the other side.
It's true.
Yeah.
What's this Enneagram thing?
Gosh, this is a whole can of worms. It's a personality typing system. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, the Enneagram is it's a personality assessment system that, rather than showing you what you do or how you do it, it shows you why you do things, why you act in certain ways, and it shows us how we all react when we're in like a state of stress. And the whole goal of the system, we got.
Oh wow.
This is great.
Oh my god.
Holy shit.
We got the whole thing here. So this is the Enneagram. It's 9 different personalities. And all right, now that we're back from our commercial break,
Yes, we have to include a little advertisement in there as well.
we'll throw something in. I don't know what brand toilet paper you're using or something.
It was definitely not Charmin Ultra Soft, I'll tell you that much.
All right, boys.
One-ply bullshit.
Yeah, that was some military grade.
Normally I wouldn't hit you with all this Enneagram stuff, but you asked.
I asked for it.
No,
you
what
received.
are you talking about?
All right, the Enneagram. It's right here. It's made up of 9 different personalities, and it basically asks why we do things and why we react in the ways that we react. And many people don't like personality typing systems because they feel like they're put in a box, or it's like horoscopy or whatever. The point of this is to understand our unconscious tendencies so that they can be made conscious and that we can become more well-rounded people. A whole person is the 10th type. What's the 10th type? It's the person who can move around the whole circle and embody these different strengths, if you will. Personally, I'm a type 1, and that's the reformer, perfectionist. I get very caught up in what's right or what's wrong. Very black and white viewpoint of the world, and probably one of the more self-critical types of them. Then you have the 7 on the other hand, and the 7 is very much it's enthusiast. It's your entrepreneur. It's your free-spirited person. And so different people in our lives embody these different energy centers, and when we learn how to navigate the circle, we can both develop ourselves better, but also navigate our relationships better, depending on who we're, in intimate relationships with.
Mhm.
It's very cool stuff. Maybe sometime we can sit down and do some typing work where I can walk you guys through it. But do you have any like, thoughts, questions, observations off the bat now while we're live? I can keep it up for you.
God, which one is Bo?
A loyalist? Yeah, without a doubt. Saw it the first thing around, and I already know what I was. You're a Oh shit! You might not be on
that
it.
makes sense because the loyalist is like the like angsty Jewish energy. They're super like loyal, but they're kind of like Larry David energy.
Yeah, that's Bo.
Ozzy's also 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Ozzy's also a loyalist. Okay, that makes sense. Aiden is it's probably a achiever.
I don't see myself up there. Does that mean I'm all 10?
No.
No, but that might
He's
help.
probably
you
he's an
discern your
achiever.
type.
He's an achiever.
Achievers are very outcome oriented. They'll kind of keep
Yeah.
that external persona very pristine and avoid
Yeah.
showing people what's going on behind the scenes. As long as the outcome is what they want it to be, they'll be willing to cut corners to get there.
Ooh.
Does that hit home?
I mean, it's not totally inaccurate for sure.
Sometimes they're very much perceived as like cocky or egotistical.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
Achievers?
They can put that persona out there, even though obviously the genuine people, and sometimes when you break past those layers, you see more of who they are. But
So does that mean I've got a long way to go to reach the 10?
no, it's not like a board game.
Oh.
You don't run the circle, but yeah, it's pretty cool stuff, guys.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That is good question. All right, hypothetical situations. What if you're like super in love with someone, right? And like, oh my god, she's the love of your life, whatever, and she's not Jewish.
Ooh, it's a great question.
That's a good question. Are you asking for me or for you?
Well,
Are you asking for me?
I don't know. It's just like, I'm throwing it in there.
That's a really good question, especially because I have some close friends who have had that situation. They meet a girl, she's exactly what they're looking for, but they were raised, super Jewish, and she is completely disconnected. Hasn't hardly met Jews in her life, right? What do you do? Well, if it's the right person, then it'll absolutely work out. If it's the right person, then and she's interested in your faith, interested in your background, where you come from, you as a Jewish person, then she may want to go through the process of converting. I think it's super important, especially as Jewish men, that we look, we're very much a minority in this world, and our people have gone through a lot, and yet we've survived. And the biggest challenge has been not persecution, because that only makes us stronger, but like assimilation. And in America, it's especially hard because we're in a lot of the times in communities that aren't just Jewish, and we meet people and it's natural. There's a cool idea I've heard though, where if someone was born not Jewish and they convert, it's said that their neshama, their soul, was Jewish all along, and they went so far to like find that and to actualize it in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very high place to be, to go from absolutely not Jewish to a practicing Jew. I know a lot of people whose parents are converts, and I just I was always raised with the idea of you're a guy and marry a Jewish girl, and that's where I stand on it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you guys?
I mean, I was going back to how we were raised. I mean, both our parents are Jewish, and grandpa's a rabbi, and so we spent a lot of time around temple, and spent a lot of time around like Jewish kids our age. And I didn't really ever like think like, oh, I'm only gonna marry like a Jewish woman. Like that was never like a thought process of mine. I think it was more just like I just need to find someone first. Like, I never dated someone before in my life, so it wasn't really like a big deal for me. But I do. Here's my problem with that. Here's my problem with what you just said, is because you say, or I guess even religious Jews say, if someone converts, then they're Jewish, they're religious, whatever. But here's the problem: is that sometimes one, if you convert in a non-orthodox way, if you convert, the reform route or even the conservative route, the religious Jews will say that you're not actually Jewish. That's one.
Oh.
Or two, if you do convert even the orthodox route, people will still be like, oh well, she converted or he converted. You know what I'm saying? So it's never like, I don't know. Like I'm trying to think about someone converting, and
No,
like I think that there's always like some sort of like air over their head where it's like this isn't actually, you know, a real Jew.
there's a
You know what I'm saying, Yuta?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that's as far as like Orthodox versus Reform conversions go. I'm not a rabbi. Like it's not. I'll leave that conversation up to like the big boys who know their stuff. I don't know enough to like get into that, but I do think that like the legitimacy of a convert isn't even a question. Like if someone converts, they are Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean you look at Jewish history. King David was one of the greatest figures in our history, and he's the grandson of a convert. Um, Ruth was someone who she converted to Judaism, and through her direct line, we received one of the greatest kings to like rule our people
Mm-hmm.
and bring like great things to the Jewish people. So I think to be blessed with something like that, I mean, whether you believe in God or not, she was
Yeah.
clearly a very holy woman to have a grandchild that she did. So I think we can learn from that lesson at least that um,
That's fair.
what people talk about, and when people
but
if there's a
But
non,
even then she was considered a convert. You just called her she was a converter.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it's a bad label per se.
I don't think it
I
is
feel
either.
I don't think it is, but I think it's given a negative label. I
I'm
think it's
I'm sure it has.
yeah.
Oh, a good example is like there was a sermon 2 years ago, um, and basically what was said was it's a story basically about conversion, okay, and this this new um, this new couple, the wife was the bride was Jewish and the groom was not, and he was actually converting, but at his, and he was really excited. He went on this whole journey of like, hey, I'm gonna completely go into Judaism. Like, this is awesome. Like, I mean, he loves her so much that he was willing to do whatever for her, and it meant a lot to her. And he started to care about it a lot. And at his bachelor party, I think it was so a couple of his buddies were there, and one of his friends brought one of his buddies from out of town, and they met, and they're talking about his spiritual journey, and how he's could not be more excited to become a Jewish guy, and that the guy he didn't know was like, oh, I'm Jewish too, like that's awesome. Like they had a private conversation about how great it was that he was converting, whatever. And then someone joins the conversation, goes, what are you guys talking about? And he says, well, we're just talking about how he's a fake Jew and I'm a real one. And he was just devastated. The guy was devastated. Like he called his rabbi immediately. He was like, I can't believe I'm putting in all this work for someone to call me fake. I can't believe I'm going through this entire journey for someone was born Jewish, but regardless of how much they care, for to call me fake. That must be a terrible feeling, especially because I think that the Jewish people in general, there's not enough of us for there to be back and forth sort of, oh, like you're not born Jewish then you're not a Jew. Like, come on. Like, what is with the hate? Like, if someone optionally wants to be a Jew, welcome to the club, I feel like. Like, we're all fighting against the entire world right now. And there's going to be people that don't want to accept more people that want to be like us for some apparent reason. Like, congratulations, this is great. So,
I think
that's just sounds.
I think someone who takes on the task of becoming Jewish and goes through that journey, and there's learning involved, and it's a process and whatnot. There's they've taken upon themselves a greater task and responsibility than someone who's born Jewish and can do absolutely nothing the rest of their lives, and they'll be born and die a Jew. Someone who takes on the task of becoming Jewish, they clearly want it. They grew up a certain way, and they see that this is the new way that they want to live. And I've met converts, and they're some of the more passionate people about their faith, about why they're doing what they're doing, and there's something commendable about it.
Mhm.
I think that that's just some. The thing is, the converts that I have met are more passionate than some of the people who are born and raised Jewish and
Sure.
don't really care or walk around calling themselves a bad Jew, which there is no such thing. We all have, you know.
There's a couple I could think of that are.
Okay, bad in what sense do we want to talk about bad? People who say, "Oh, I don't do anything. I'm a bad Jew." Blah blah blah. It's like no, you
Just
you're
not practicing.
you have a spark of holiness in you.
Hmm.
You have a spark of divinity in you. Don't put that on yourself. Um, that's the message. And for someone to share something like that, it probably reflects how they really feel about themselves. I mean,
Right.
that's all we do is put our own shit on other people.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Are you waiting for my question for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh gosh. I mean, I know, since October 7th, you've gotten a lot more religious, for probably a multitude of reasons. Um, and I would say a lot of people I know have gotten a little bit more religious, or, they've gone the opposite way and they've, kind of just disregarded their Judaism entirely. Um, what do you think moving forward is the best way to, show your Jewish, faith and, religion without, now it's a little bit dangerous to, walk around with the Jewish star hanging out. Like when I'm walking on campus and, there's some rallies, some protests, or, I see someone with, some sort of sign or garment that, is directly against, Israel and Jewish people, I tend to close off a little bit and I tend to, tuck my chain in or try to hide my Judaism. What do you think would be the best piece of advice moving forward? Like, you know, to show your faith and passion without, risking harm.
I think you're touching on something that's a bigger conversation, and it's about how we perceive anti-Semitism and our willingness to be visibly Jewish because of it. And the problem I see and I'm guilty of doing this too, and falling into this as well, is we see things happening in America, especially. I won't talk about Europe. That's its own
Yeah,
separate. I mean, that's
its own
its
shithole.
own, yeah. But we count how many hate crimes have we had
Yeah,
this year. Like we track it and we measure it, and there's organizations that do this, not to name any names.
yeah,
And it's like it's very much pushes fear onto people, when in reality we live in one of the safest countries that you can be a Jew in the history of the Jewish people, with the exception of Israel. I mean, America gives Jewish people the right to religion
hmm,
and free expression, and we, I mean, our ancestors would have loved to experience the type of Jewish freedom that we experience today. So I think it's on us to recognize that and say, well, if my grandparents, great grandparents, going all the way back would have loved this, what's like one small way that I can carry on that legacy, carry on that fire? And maybe for someone, it's not wearing their Jewish star out in public.
yeah,
Maybe for them, it's a faith that's more quiet and it's more internal and it's more personal. Being Jewish doesn't always mean that you have to look it. You don't have to Like Americans love to wear their Jewish stars, and it's a
Yeah.
symbol of pride. What's better than pride is love and is gratitude, and you can accomplish that in your own practice through talking to God, talking to whatever you believe in
Yeah.
as God, higher power. I mean, that's an expression of the Jewish spirit as well, you know.
Hmm.
You don't always have to
Yeah.
to wear it right here, although a lot of people choose to.
Yeah. I just think it's impactful because, since, the attack, I mean, you started wearing, tzitzit every day, and you started visibly wearing a kippah as well. And those are two, pretty recognizable signs of, being Jewish. And, even for me, like, I sometimes myself, and I shouldn't do this, but, you know, when you see those types of rallies and people doing that stuff, you just instinctually, out of, you know, wanting to be out of harm's way, you just kind of go the other way.
Mm.
Um, and for me, it's easy because, I don't have any visible signs, of being Jewish. But I mean, besides,
I mean,
besides my big nose, but
yeah, I mean,
besides the
I
point.
wouldn't go that far.
Um, but I think it's different when you actually have stuff that you can't just tuck away and you're proud about it, um, which I think is so commendable. But, um, it's just, it's a different world out there. I think, you can say everything you want about it being America is this great country, and it is. America is a great country, but there's also a lot of people in this country, and there's a lot of people in the world who are really hateful people, no matter what country they're in, no matter what freedoms they're given. And we've seen there's been a lot of hate crimes even in this country. So for me, it's like not as much where you are. It's more about just I know there's a lot of people out there that would like to do harmful things to Jewish people if they could, especially if they know who's who. Um, which is why I think like having that internal Jewish faith is really important, but also like I think being able to be proud of it when it is external is also important. I think that's something you do really well.
Thank you. I think the bigger, I guess, what's the word? The bigger theme here, which I was getting at before, is that when we believe that there's hateful people out there that want to do harm to us, though there may be evidence, especially online, when that's
Hmm.
probably, if you're a Jewish person keeping up with the war and
Yeah,
anti-Semitism, that'll be at the front of your feed, right?
yeah,
When you internalize all of that information and you let it become your worldview, then that's what you'll start to see.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying to deny it, but I'm saying if we shift our attention and we start focusing on why do we even care to be Jewish? Yes, people are people don't like us. People have never liked us.
yeah. We've been a pretty targeted
And
group for a long
and
time.
and and
Always.
but there's always been people that have looked out for us. There's always been
Less now than I think ever.
The people that have always been after us now are just louder than they have been in the past.
I think they have a platform to be louder, but I think I gotta say I think there's less allies of Jewish people now than obviously there's sometimes in history where there's been very little, but for quite a bit now. Um, I think of, our grandpa marched, at Selma with Martin Luther King, for the civil rights movement, back in the 60s. And, um, you know, what an impactful moment. And, Jewish people have always been very supportive of the African American community for a long time.
Sure.
Um, and I think it's really sad now that, when October 7th happened, the first thing that, you know, BLM posted was what was it? The Palestinian, people on the parachutes going into Israel, whatever,
the
whatever.
Hamas
Oh,
paragliders.
the paragliders, the
Yeah,
Hamas paragliders
yeah.
going into Israel. I mean, I know that's not a direct.
Jewish people have been the
I
strongest
know
allies
that's.
of
I know that
African-Americans
has
within the
not
United
been.
States in the
That's
60s.
not a direct.
Like it's
Um, connotation of obviously that group in general. That's not true, but I think that for a movement that is representing the African American community, like it's really sad to see that after a lot of things that our grandpa has done and a lot of Jewish people have done for different you know minority groups in this country, just the lack of support has been pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, I also think we're the 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 battle of the Jewish people in our generation is far different than it's ever been. Where today we live in an age of information and um, information that's spread at such a rapid rate, and it's easy to let that, like I said, become part and in the forefront of our minds.
Mhm.
It's easy to forget what we really have when we have all this information coming at us, telling us to be scared, be afraid. Um, I think what I would say to that, and everything you've told me, I get and I understand. I think we all have the individual power to shift our focus back to our strengths and the light of our people. And that's not something that you will find on most news outlets and
Mhm.
most newspapers. Um, because there's a tendency to focus on what's bad. Let's count how many hate crimes have there been this year, which countries have spoken out against us. It's not an accurate representation of um, our level of safety or
Yeah.
our the amount of allies we have on an individual level.
Mhm.
So I would say let's revert our attention.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, guys, I want to come back to the first topic we discussed and navigating college, and sort of to end off here. Aiden, you've been studying architecture now
Mhm.
for 4 years,
Yeah.
and Bo, international affairs.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're kind of at the beginning of your journey. You're at the end of it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. You got your brother here. I know you're not studying the same thing, but what's something that you've learned as a student? Something that, yeah, advice that you want to give to
Yeah.
him, and in general, just for people, why are you interested? What you're interested in? What have you learned from your major in general?
Interesting. It's a good question. I am an architecture major, but I want to be a developer. So, using that architectural knowledge, but, buying, my own plots of land and developing my own plots of land is kind of where I see myself going in my career. Um, I would say a piece of advice for college for, someone just starting out or, anybody listening would probably just to be um even when you have assignments due, and I'm guilty of this as well, is I get very anxious for assignments. I'm a very school oriented guy. So when I do have like projects that come up, I start to like block myself off from the world a little bit. um, but I think it's important to realize that you're going to get those assignments done because there's never been a time where you haven't. You've always completed your task at one point or another. You've never not done it, is what I would say to someone. um, and for just school in general, I think enjoy your 4 years. Try to stay out of the drugs is probably my main thing, because I've just seen it really take a lot of people, like, just you know yeah, like, just freshman kids that I knew, who pledged with us, and just other kids in general
Yeah.
who were really motivated kids coming into school. and
That's a good point.
and you can see, all these years later, they just have lost their drive.
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean, that's like the biggest piece of advice. Like, enjoy your time, but also, you come into school being a energetic person. Don't leave it becoming this mundane, drab
Droopy.
person who, can't get off their couch. What's so funny about that, Bo?
No, I agree. I don't know. It's
Seem like you're
true.
laughing a lot.
It's true. It's true. It's a good piece of advice, especially when you hang out with the wrong people.
Definitely hang out with the right group of kids. I think that's pretty important.
Bo, any final words?
I mean, he made a good point. I think that's a good piece of advice, honestly, for anyone in any circumstance or context. And seriously, like, I now more than ever believe that the people that you surround yourself with are the people um, that you want to grow with and that you can see yourself sharing your successes with. That's how I see it. I mean, I want to tell the guys that drive me to become a better person. I want to share how well I do with them, and vice versa, and nobody else, because they saw me grow and they supported me as well as me doing the same for them. So those are the types of people that you should be like constantly surrounding yourself with.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on. Glad we got to do this.
Wow, this is the end.
This is the end. We made it. And I'll only have a few segments to cut out.
About a 5-minute break here or there. I don't really know how long.
5 minutes, more like 10.
All right, fellas. Well, cheers. Cheers.
All right, I drink all mine.
All right.
So-